He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things were created by him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. You are here, which I would like to call the Adventist Church in Denmark. If you were to say it as an American trying to speak Danish, then I could say, let's see, I practiced it, but I have a posture. We are in Narum. Yeah, okay. I practiced, you don't really say the R, you just skateboard over it. Narum. We are in Concordia Vej, right, on this street. Yeah, okay, so Adventistkirken. That's as close as I can get. But that's where you are right now. That was a really pitiful attempt. I appreciate your applause so much. That's really good. But this is where we are. No matter what you call it, no matter what your accent, no matter if you're talking 55 latitude, 12 longitude, you're here. And you're here now. But there was a time before all of this. A time before mobile phones and automobiles. A time before trains and steam engines. A time before the Renaissance. A time before Europe. A time before Vikings and Greeks. A time before Stonehenge and pyramids. There was a time before the Advent movement. Before Christianity, before Paul, before Elijah or Moses, a time before Noah, a time before Eve, before Adam. Before the sixth day, when there were people and birds and beasts and fish, before that, before the fifth day, before the fourth, before the third, before the second day, before the first day, before. He is before all things. He is before all things. There was Christ. He is before all of this and all that we know and everything we're looking at and everything we are and everything we're thinking about and dreaming about and everything we're worried about and everything that will come after us and everything that's come before all of that, before was Jesus. He is before all things. He is both prior to all things and preeminent above all things, because before they were, he is. He is before all things, all stuff, all people, all places, all powers. Jesus, full stop. All full stop. He is before all things. And, as the text tells us beautifully, and in him all things consist. As Colossians celebrates here, and we've been exploring today, creation cannot be explained apart from Christ, right? All things were created by him and for him, right? So when we say all things were created by him, Christ is the how of creation. And when the scriptures tell us, we hear this word that all creation is for him. Christ is the why of creation. And then here in Colossians 1:17, he is before all things, and in him all things consist. Christ is the how, the why, and the in which of creation. He is the reason we have creation and not chaos. He is the logic and the wisdom of creation, its architect and its gravity. Our entire world, our entire selves only make sense in light of Christ. We are held together in him. All of our life, all of ourselves makes sense only in light of Christ. So, all creation is his creation. Which means that it's really, really important what we think about creation. It means it's really, really important what we think about what means this Jesus used to bring about the creation that we experience today. But it also means that it's really, really important how we treat the creation now that it's here. Because every soaring summit and every undiscovered cavern is his. Every staggering mountain range and every quiet valley is his. It means that every overcast sky and every blue one, every thundercloud and every rainbow are his. Every blue whale, every camel, every mantis shrimp, every bluebird, every eagle are his. Every sight of natural beauty is his, and they are gifts from him to us. God is love is written upon every opening bud, upon every spire of springing grass. They are his, and they are his gifts to us. And that also means that the oceans we poison are his oceans, and the forests that we ravage are his forests. And the mountains that we bleed and the air we pollute are his. A full acknowledgement of the preeminence of Christ as creator must include creation care. That's an imperative for Christians in the way that we live, because all creation is his creation. And all people are his people. In him, all things consist. In him, all people consist. In him, we live and we move and we have our being, so that the children we birth are his. And the people we stand next to in line at the bank are his. And the celebrities in the gossip magazines and the politicians on television are his. Our lovers and our enemies, our neighbors and ourselves, we are his. Even the people we sit beside in church are his. Even the people who sit in denominational offices are his. Even me. And if you can believe it, even you are his, by virtue of creation. And in him all things consist, so all history is his. We are stories. We are stories. And we dwell among a people of stories, histories. But there is one story that explains all other stories. There is one life that explains all other lives. There is one event, the Christ event, that explains all other events, that makes sense of them, that puts them in their appropriate light, that situates them in a way that we can understand their true significance and meaning. The history of Christ is the key to unlocking the meaning of all of history. From pre-creation to Mount Sinai and beyond, that's his. From the building of the pyramids to the Arab Spring, from colonization to independence, in every context, it is his. Before and now and then, are his. It finds its place in him, its meaning in his meaning, its story in his story. We can only understand the true evils of history by understanding them in contrast to the plan and person of Christ. And we can only understand the progress of history as being congruent with the plan and the person of Jesus Christ. All history makes sense only in him. And for millennia, human history was an anticipation, a breath held in, a pile of failed human epics, yearning for the promised one. And he came. Christ came. And he lived. And he worked. And then he laid down his life. And he died on a Roman cross. And then he was resurrected 3 days later. And he ministered here for 40 days. And he went back to his Father. And he ministers in a sanctuary for us. We are living in his history. We are living in his story. Jesus is the Son of God, and we live in his ministry. And we live in an expectation of his return. We wait for him. We are the Advent people longing to be with Jesus. We wait for him, and we wait in him, and our stories are only part of his story. And soon we will have every hope of human history finally realized when we see it in his face. We are living in his story. That's where you are. And all truth is his truth. All truth is his truth, which means that we don't have to brag about it as if we made it true. Like, by believing in this, I hereby make it true. Or, I have been fantastic, therefore this is true. All truth is his truth, so we don't have to brag about it. We can talk humbly about what we know, and we also have the freedom to speak humbly about what we don't know. Because truth is not a possession we own. We don't put it in our pocket or photocopy it or pass it out or put it in a box and bury it or put it on the mantle. Truth owns us. We don't own it. All truth is Christ's truth. And since all truth is his truth, it's nothing to be ashamed of either. Like a black eye from losing a fight or something. We participate in Christ. And if he shares his truth with us, we don't have to brag about it, but we don't have to be ashamed about it either. You don't have to be ashamed of the truth of Christ in your life. We don't have to be bullied by the majority opinion. We don't have to be afraid of opposition or disagreement. We don't have to live defensively as if we're protecting the truth by being afraid to hear people. People say a lot of things that are wrong, right? But we often live in defense of truth, like truth is behind us and we're a human shield. We don't have to live that way because we don't own it. Jesus is in charge of it. And I pray continually that he'll help me live into the truth I know is in him and that he wants to share with me. That's a privilege. So neither do I go bragging about it, but I don't also have to live defensively and bullied and quiet. All truth is his truth. It's not to be hoarded or hidden either. It's not our truth, it's his. So we can be generous with this truth. We exist for a purpose. There is a sad collection of misconceptions about God in the world. That he's absent, that he's cruel, that he's wicked, that he's fickle, that he's more concerned with power than love. We've been given truth by the grace of Christ in order to magnify who God really is. And we don't have to be ashamed of it and hoard it or brag about it. He is before all things, and in him all things consist, which means that we exist in the context of the cosmic Christ. He is the reason that there's creation and not chaos. He is the reasonableness of the universe and the logic and the wisdom of creation. He is the architect and its gravity, its rhyme and its reason. Our entire world, our entire selves are held together in Christ and they make sense only in Christ. So who you are and everyone you meet, and everything you do and everything that is done to you, everything you see and everything you hope, is in this cosmic Christ context and will never make sense apart from that cosmic Christ and that context. Jesus all means everything for faith and practice, but it also means a lot for the way we conceive of things, the way we interpret our lives, the way we think about history and the world. Christ is the context and explanatory principle for all of life, everything intimate, everything distant, everything obvious, and everything mysterious. A long time ago, before most of you were born, in 1665 or so, I saw a few oldies, I'm not going to lie. There was a plague that came to Cambridge University, and the students were sent home for the summer. And including one student, about 21 or 22 years of age, named Isaac Newton. Being the nerd that he was, he packed up all of his massive books, locked himself up in a room for the summer, and decided he would master all of known science and forge ahead with brand new discoveries. And because he is Isaac Newton, he basically did that very thing. Yeah. One such discovery was not actually a discovery at all, but a very important articulation of something that everybody experienced all the time and everywhere: gravity. Gravity wasn't something Newton invented. It wasn't even something he really discovered, but he put words to the fact that there was a predictable force that governed all of the matter in the universe, including falling apples, including you and that table and your dog and even the lovely and heavenly moon. Everything, all of this, all of us exist in a gravitational context. That's why we're not flying off into the atmosphere, right? It's why we have days and months and years and a moon and a sun that we orbit around. It's why we have high tides and why we can build skyscrapers. And you know, people lived for thousands of years without having a name for this thing we now call gravity. But when they said gravity, it explained the order and the predictability of everyday life. When gravity got a name, it opened up previously unknown territories of exploration, discovery, and wonder. And in a very real and even more real sense, Christ is the gravity of creation because in him, all things consist. In him, everything holds together. He's the reason there is a logic to be uncovered by the Isaac Newtons and Albert Einsteins of the world. He is the one in whom we live and move and have our being. He holds us together. And when God, in his grace, gives us a revelation of himself in Christ, it opens to us previously unknown territories of exploration, discovery, and wonder. The world has at one time makes more sense, and its mysteries become more beautiful because we've met their source. So let me pronounce something that's true for you today. As Christians, you are no longer bound to the dull and predictable patterns of selfishness and sin. You are no longer lost in the abusive voices of human expectations and managing impressions. You are no longer ruled by anxiety of being small in an infinite universe. You are no longer imprisoned by the fear of death because you know the Jesus who is before all things, and you know this Jesus in whom all things consist. So be blessed in your knowledge, friends. Know this Jesus and know everything in relationship to him. May you enjoy every bird song and every snowfall as a gift from him. May you see the image of Jesus in every human face. May you trace the work of this Jesus from the long ages of history past and into the bright eternal future. May you rejoice in truth wherever it be found as the wonderful possession of this Jesus, for he is before all things, and in him all things consist.